Well, the number 3 Republican in the House will be talking to us for the first time since she is the number 3 Republican in the House. Elise Stefanik, how are you?
Great to be with you, Mark.
Now, you notice I didn't call you a birthing person. You're a woman, right? Isn't that the...
So, yes.
You're a proud woman. Things are getting kind of sick, aren't they, Elise? I mean, honestly, birthing person, isn't that like a put down of a woman as far as you're concerned?
It is ridiculous, and actually we had Secretary Becerra, Secretary of HHS, testify today, and the Republicans hammered him on that issue because I've heard from families in my district how absurd and, frankly, unscientific that term is, a birthing person taking place of a mother.
I'm trying to figure out what men are going to be called. And my mind goes to places I shouldn't mention, but I'm just saying it's just weird. Anyway, there's so much weird that is going on, isn't it? I mean, like critical race theory. This is really, teaching racism to kids of all backgrounds and colors in our classrooms and so forth. Did you ever think you'd see the day?
I never thought I'd see the day, Mark, but the unraveling under President Biden
Yeah, right.
and Speaker Pelosi has been just destructive and so quick. Again, as someone who was very critical of President Obama, which is why I mentioned his name, this administration under President Biden is even further to the left. And the American people are waking up to it. In regards to critical race theory, you're seeing moms and dads stand up across this country in opposition to this brainwashing that the far left is pushing. This is not the Democratic Party of 5 and 10 years ago. This is a radicalized Socialist Democratic Party, and it's a crisis. America is facing a number of crises under Joe Biden's failed leadership.
Speaking of crisis, look at the border. It's going on each and every day. Everybody's been down there except for Biden and Harris because they don't want a bad press event. You have people on our side of the border who are suffering. You have people who are coming to the border who are suffering. You have God knows how many children who have been segregated out from their parents. We don't know how many MS-13 are coming in, how many other criminals are coming in. Coyotes are making a fortune, and it's like nothing's going on. The media just sits back.
The media does sit back, and what's interesting, Mark, is the Republicans are very unified in our message, really prosecuting the case against the Biden administration, how they've failed, their policies have failed, and they've created what is a border crisis. And it's not just a humanitarian crisis. This is a national security crisis, economic crisis, and a homeland security crisis. If you look at what's going on our southern border, if you look at the numbers of illegal migrants who are trying to cross the border, it is skyrocketed. It is more at this point in this year than it was for the entirety of all of last year. And the numbers continue to go up. If you compare April to May, we're dealing with a 600% increase from those months the year before. And it's impacting every community, not just our southern border states, but every community in this country is impacted. For example, the amount of illegal fentanyl that is crossing our southern border, that is very much tied to drugs in our communities, overdoses in our communities, and unfortunately, we're seeing those numbers tick back up. And President Biden owns this crisis. This is because of the policy decisions he has made, whether it was his refusal to continue the construction of the border wall, whether it was his getting rid of the Remain in Mexico policy. And basically, they've embraced amnesty. And don't get me started on the quote-unquote border czar, who has done everything except go to the southern border. She's gone to a bakery, she's gone to a yarn shop, she's gone to South America, but has yet to go to the southern border to see this crisis. And yet she's responsible. She was delegated by the president to address this. Republicans are going to continue to stand up, expose this crisis, but also put forth our solutions, which are securing the border, making sure we're a country that's based upon the rule of law, and making sure that the American people know what's happening there.
What in the world did Joe Biden accomplish the last few days with Putin? Well, I don't even understand this whole event.
Well, this has been, unfortunately, President Biden asserting weakness on the world stage. Let's start with the G7. This is, I think it was a weak performance leading up to this very important summit with Vladimir Putin. But he failed on a number of key issues when it came to our G7 allies. For example, I represent a district that's right along the northern border. And while President Biden loves keeping the southern border wide open, he continues to keep the northern border closed, which has a detrimental impact on our economy. That was one of the most important takeaways and issues he should have addressed with Prime Minister Trudeau. They failed to do that. They failed to deliver any results for the American people. When it comes to his sit down today with Vladimir Putin, President Biden has already given away so many issues that benefit Russia and hurt America. For example, when it comes to the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, this was a top Russian priority in terms of Russian
Would you like
independence.
to hold over just a few minutes so we can finish this point? Are you available?
Yes, absolutely.
We will be right back. That is Representative Elise Stefanik, number 3 Republican in the leadership in the House of Representatives. We'll be right back. Representative Elise Stefanik is the number 3 Republican in the House, having defeated, I guess, Lynn Cheney. I believe that was her name. Just kidding. Liz Cheney, that's right. Elise Stefanik, you were talking about the pipeline where Trump had cut it off, and Biden comes in again, apparently against the advice of his senior staff, and gives it back to the Russians. Now, why would he do that?
That's right. That was one of the many concessions that President Biden made even before he sat down with Vladimir Putin today. Again, it is just America last rather than America first. The fact that President Biden canceled the Keystone XL pipeline but waived sanctions for a Russian pipeline as Russia tries to pursue energy independence and energy leadership in Europe. So that was one concession. The second concession President Biden made, even before they sat down, was there's been no consequences for the cyber attacks on the Colonial Pipeline as well as our agricultural supply chain. Those were done by cyber criminals, but backed by Russia. And there was no counteraction or no consequences from the United States. And then third, one of Putin's top priorities was a 5-year extension to the New START treaty, which deals with nuclear arsenals with the U.S. and Russia. And we know that Russia is investing in its nuclear modernization. Joe Biden gave that away to Putin beforehand. So he came out of the meeting today with no wins for America. And again, Russia is testing him. Putin is testing him. And President Biden is failing that test and not showing American strength.
I just want Americans to know that the Russian nuclear inventory, about 88% of it has been modernized. About none of ours has been modernized. And under the Biden proposed massive multi-trillion dollar, $6 trillion budget, the defense budget really goes negative because he doesn't
Correct.
even give enough of an increase to cover existing expenses, correct?
That is correct. President Biden's budget, which will bankrupt America, is actually a cut to our national defense budget because it doesn't keep pace with inflation. This was a really big win that President Trump delivered. We were in the process of rebuilding our national defense, our military readiness. This is something that I work on the House Armed Services Committee. And when it comes to nuclear modernization, Democrats in Congress are very much opposed to making the critical investments we need when it comes to nuclear modernization, yet adversaries like Russia, to your point, Mark, have made those investments. And Putin's top priority was to get that 5-year extension for the New START treaty. Biden gave it away without delivering anything back for the United States.
And he does this all over the world. I mean, he's negotiating with the Iranian regime. He's going to get them hundreds of billions of dollars while they're going to build their nukes. He has opened up the money spigot to Palestinians, including terrorist arms of the Palestinians. And they said, well, some of the money gets to Hamas and some terrorism. We really can't control that. And yet they accused Trump, the previous president, of kowtowing to dictators. I see it the other way around, don't you?
I see it the other way around, too. I mean, President Trump asserted strength. It was peace through strength, and adversaries took President Trump's leadership seriously. They are not taking President Joe Biden seriously. They are assessing a weak president. And you know other countries that are watching this summit with Vladimir Putin? China. She is watching this, and this administration has been weak on holding the Communist Chinese Party accountable. And we need to not only address the origin of COVID, which Joe Biden and his administration have refused to do, but calling out the human rights abuses as well as continuing to test in terms of some of the defense capabilities as China is making these strategic investments. So other adversaries were watching this meeting today between the United States and Russia.
Let me ask you this. I'll keep nudging on your time here. Politics. You know, you have these people running for office who pretend to be moderate Democrats. You got this guy, Josh Gosheimer, whatever his name is. I'm familiar with him. He represents the district my mother-in-law's in. He goes back. He's sort of a moderate. And so it's not a moderate. Whenever Nancy Pelosi needs these people, they vote with her and for her. Are we going to be able to get that message across in some of these marginal districts, you think?
We are going to get that message across because these members of Congress are taking votes, and the Democratic caucus is voting unified with Nancy Pelosi, with AOC, with Ilhan Omar, with Rashida Tlaib, with the far left. And I think the biggest falsehood of the Biden campaign was that he made this promise to the American people that he would be bipartisan. He said that in his inaugural address. We have seen absolutely no bipartisanship, whether it was the non-COVID relief package that was passed earlier this year. Remember, Republicans passed 5 bipartisan COVID relief packages working with President Trump and Democrats. Those are bipartisan. What Pelosi has shoved through has not been. You're seeing this discussion on an infrastructure deal. That ultimately is going to be a partisan trillion-dollar behemoth that Democrats are going to just have a slush fund for Green New Deal. So these Democrats that purport to be moderate, they've taken these votes 99% of the time with Nancy Pelosi.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, you sound like you guys are very well organized, focused on what you want to do, and it'll really take we the people to make this change. So we appreciate it. Good job.
Thank you so much, Mark, and thanks to all your listeners. We are energized, and I am optimistic that next November we are going to fire Nancy Pelosi once and for all and win back the House.
God, I hope you're right. Thank you. God bless. All right. Very nice lady, by the way. She's a fighter, sounds to me. Doesn't she sound that way to you, Mr. Producer? Better than Liz Cheney. Although recently, and I hate to say this, because I used to like her, low bar. And I think Elise Stefanik is a very high bar.